This episode of the podcast is brought to you by patreon.com/lightscameranonsense. Visit patreon.com/lightscameranonsense to help support your favorite new movie podcast. Now, let's roll that reel.
When it's gonna be, but I haven't even made the graphic for it, but it's gonna be great. So just
Excited crowd, man.
exciting crab hands. It's not very loud. Give me the clickety clacks. There you go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lights Camera Nonsense, where we give you all the latest movie magic you may have missed. I'm Nick, the Baconator Simmons.
And I'm Zach Wacky Smith.
Oh, that is so lame. Try again. Try again.
No, you came up with Baconator. Fuck off.
It ties in with one of the things I'm going to talk about.
Yes, I know. So does mine. It's just a different way of saying the thing that ties in with it.
We'll see. And on July 18th, 2021, let's dive into the previews. If you're watching us on YouTube, you're watching us a day late. You can actually watch us on Patreon at patreon.com/lightscameranonsense and watch all of our content there early for signing up for just $1. What can you buy with $1, Zach?
Your mom. Boom!
Oh, damn, she's so cheap. Oh, no. Now I'm going to have a stern talking to on Mother's Day. That's not good. If you don't have time to watch, that's perfectly okay. Once it's uploaded onto YouTube, it's uploaded onto every podcast service available all over the internets, all over the interwebs. For your listening pleasure. But... including iTunes, Spotify, all that kind of thing, all that kind of jazz. You know, you've got one, you know. And if you do more driving than you do sitting down on your couch watching YouTube, I understand. I do the same thing. Enough of that nonsense, though. Enough of that nonsense, Zach.
Yes.
What have you been watching?
More nonsense.
Yes.
So to start, one of the things I watched, I finally got around to watching Black Widow, which you watched last week.
Indeed.
So yeah, I'm not gonna go too far into like plot details or anything like that because I assume one, if you're interested, you kind of get the gist of it anyway, and two, there's really not like a whole lot of plot here. It's a very like Marvel Phase 1 movie.
Thank you. I think that was one of the things I forgot to mention in the fact that it's not that we had huge expectations for Black Widow. It was just that we were so starved of Marvel content before, like, we had all the TV shows at the beginning of this year, that we were, like, when it got delayed due to COVID-19, people were just, once it came out, we were like, we've been waiting for this forever. And you know how fans get and just the general audience get when they finally find something that they've been waiting for and it comes out, the expectations are so high. And even if like it was, you know, phase 3 quality or even phase 2 quality with some of their higher praised movies like Guardians of the Galaxy or Thor Ragnarok, it's just not gonna reach that because of everything that it's trying to do.
You know, something I will say, you brought up phase 2. I do find it's interesting that people, you know, like the whole this is a very phase 1 Marvel movie sort of thing. It's a pretty normal critique for some of the Marvel movies that will kind of hit sort of a middling point nowadays. Captain Marvel I know I had said the very same thing for that, and I believe I had seen that elsewhere from other people that they felt that was kind of a phase 1 movie. To their benefit, though, if you describe a Marvel movie as a phase 2 Marvel movie, odds are that movie's not good.
Really?
Because phase 2 is not the best.
Well, isn't Guardians 1 phase 2?
Guardians 1 is phase 2, but I feel like that's an outlier because between that and Winter Soldier, like those are the only ones that are really...
But there's wasn't there only 5 in phase 2?
Yeah, Iron Man 3, which I like.
I do too.
It's a divisive movie.
Yeah.
Thor: The Dark World, which
is always at the bottom of everyone's lists.
Yeah. Winter Soldier, which is fan-fucking-tastic. Still
top of everyone's list.
Best Marvel movie.
Yeah. It's the basis of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
Yeah.
Like the whole...
Guardians 1, and Age of Ultron.
Yeah.
So, like, depending on your feelings of
Ant-Man is Phase 3?
Yeah.
Look that up for me.
Yeah, Ant-Man might be... No, Ant-Man's Phase 3, I think. No.
Hold on, I'll look
phase,
it up.
It's Phase 2, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
Phase 2. Iron Man 3. Just go through it. Iron Man 3, Thor: The Dark World, Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers: Age of Ultron, and then Ant-Man. So yeah, it was right after.
So like, depending on how you feel, and I love Ant-Man. Again, I feel like that's a divisive one as well. So depending on how you feel about Iron Man 3 and Ant-Man, the statement of that is a very Phase 2 movie could either be like, this has a 50-50 shot of being like pretty good, or like a majority of a shot of not being good.
Well, I think out of all of those movies, 2 of them are origin story movies, and I think that's kind of the basis of your point, is that because it's an origin story movie, there's not necessarily there's a certain expectation for how people are going to be anticipating this movie, even though it's a midquel that takes place in between Civil War and an Endgame. So,
well, I think that's kind of the point, though, is that
we know what happens.
It feels like a Phase 1 movie, but it is very much not an origin story. We already have established Black Widow as a character, especially at this point, because this is post Endgame, for the viewer anyway. And before that, you had, this takes place between Age of Ultron and Civil War.
Nope, Civil War and Endgame, essentially.
Yeah, Civil War and Infinity War.
Well, no, the final scene takes place after Endgame.
Right, but that's post-credit. The bulk of the movie is nestled within...
Okay, between the movie's releases and the time. Okay,
between Civil War and Infinity War.
I still think the post-credit scene is very essential to that
it is,
plot.
just because it's leading into...
It's the only thing that made this movie relevant to me.
Yeah, everybody's fine in it. Florence Pugh has some pretty good one-liners and zingers. Like, she's pretty funny. David Harbour is a character.
You didn't like him in this movie.
He's fine. He's like the same joke kind of throughout the whole movie.
Big bumbling idiot kind of thing.
Bumbling idiot, and nobody is ever listening to him whenever he's trying to be sincere. Like, they just walk out of the room, and he's kind of a one-note character. He basically goes from like saying he's all about family to not being about family, to also saying he's about family, and then kind of being about family, and it's just like it's weird, like.
Zach, I'm glad that you introduced David Harbour's what is his name? Red Guardian?
Yes.
Is his superhero name. I forgot his actual character's name. We'll just say Vlad. I can't remember. I believe, and here I want to introduce a new segment into the show, and it's called the Totally Impossible Theory Show. We'll come up with the acronym. We'll shorten it later. It'll come up to something.
Theory show.
And then what I wanted to posit to
wait
you,
a minute.
Zach.
Hold on. Wait a minute.
What?
You say, okay, Totally Impossible Theory Show?
Yeah.
You know what that spells out, right? Did you do that on purpose?
No, I didn't do anything on purpose. Anyway, what I wanted to posit to you was that David Harbour's character in Black Widow is actually, hear me out, Zach, is actually his character from Stranger Things, a clone of his character from Stranger Things. Because at the end of season 3, right, David Harbour's Hopper gets captured by the Russians in the post-credit scene, and so we're like left up in the arms of like, why? Where does character go? I believe that the Russians cloned him and created a super soldier out of him, and this is tying in Stranger Things universe with the Marvel universe. And 11 is a mutant, a telekinetic mutant, and is an offspring of Charles Xavier. But that's just a whole separate thing we could talk about later. What do you think about that?
It's in the name, I think. Totally impossible.
All right. Well, I guess if you just want to shoot it down, this has been a phenomenally successful inaugural episode of the Totally Impossible Theory Show. Okay, don't ruin the joke.
No,
man.
I will
Come
ruin
on.
the joke.
It's supposed to be left unsaid. All right, moving on.
Yeah, so Black Widow. Yeah, it's just kind of like very boilerplate. It felt like I did like Taskmaster. It's a different take on the character. I just felt like they were underutilized. You know, they didn't really have a whole lot of Taskmastery things. Like, how many scenes are there really of them using
3.
the ability of Taskmaster? You know, like
Yeah, 3. Through 3 different encounters between Taskmaster and Natasha.
Yeah.
And while we do get to see a lot of cool, amazing, and familiar choreography from the character, I still feel like they were underutilized as a what is it called? It's literally a trope. Starscream, as a Starscream for the main villain, which is just a guy.
The main villain is just Villain Man. You know, like there's no sort of different take on this sort of character.
Feel free to spoil the movie, by the way, because anybody who wants to watch it has watched it. And we're a week out, so.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing, too. Like, it goes along with the plot. There's not really a whole lot to spoil here. Taskmaster is no one. It's not like comic accurate or anything, but it's fine. Like it's an interesting take on that character. I'm not like up in arms like, oh no, it's not the exact same, you know. But I feel like there's not enough interesting things going on there with them and then the main villain. You know, like the whole movie is just kind of set up as a go from point A to point B, and then from point B take a detour all the way around to point C.
Yeah.
And then, but it's the same direction that you would have just gone anyways if you hadn't taken that detour. So you're just kind of like taking a longer trip to get to the same place. To
pad the runtime, yeah. There's a lot of decisions made in this movie that seem like, oh, we need to get to the next set piece, not necessarily, hey, we need to move the plot forward necessarily. So,
and because they spend so much time on those set pieces, and to be fair, like a lot of the action choreography and those set pieces in general, they're very good. They're quite explosive. And what are you doing there?
Okay, they are pretty good.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
I'm making the okay sign. I'm sure. I mean, in today's society, it probably means 10 other things, but I just meant it is a-okay, A1.
I know
bussin', as the kids say.
I know in a different country that is like a sign for flipping someone off.
Well, no, I know that. Okay, so this is peace in America, but in Australia, I think this means to flip somebody off, and in England, this means it's backwards, and just like the water, you know, it flushes backwards in Australia.
And the thumb.
The thumb I bite my thumb at you, kind of Shakespearean thing, yeah.
Well, no, there's just like a thumbs up in a different country is just a middle finger.
Oh,
I forget which one. But anyway, that's aside from the point. Yeah, the action set pieces are good. You know, they just like they're well done. They're just kind of there though, and yeah, they end up padding out the runtime, and so you get to the situation where you have all your team sitting down at a table and like going through it. Almost feels like forced emotional growth. Like it's very strange. The only person aside from Natasha, who obviously has the benefit of being in like a bajillion other movies.
Yeah, we have her backstory at this point.
The only other person who even comes close to like having some sort of genuine connection with the viewer, like in terms of like being emotionally available and being what's the word, vulnerable,
right,
is
three-dimensional in this case.
Yes, is Florence Pugh's character, who I'm totally blanking on her name. Yelena, yeah. Which does make sense in
the fact that they're setting her up.
Yeah, she's going to be in more stuff going forward, but like, all the other characters are just kind of there, and any sort of emotional growth or character growth, it just feels like it's trying to be more developed when it's just really flat. And I feel like that's the whole movie.
It's just okay. It's like
fine.
It's going to be in that tier that's not Thor: The Dark World or, for me personally, Ant-Man and the Wasp, where it's just kind of
I agree.
It's not like it's okay. It's less than okay, but it's not garbage. Like, no, I don't think any Marvel movie is absolutely unwatchable.
Right? Yeah.
But there's just some that, like, if you sat all of them down in front of me, I would absolutely say, I don't want to watch these 6, or, you know.
Yeah, because there's a bunch of other ones that are either really good or fucking spectacular that you can choose first.
Of course.
So, yeah, I definitely don't regret watching it by any stretch of the imagination. I had a decently fun time with it, but yeah, it was just kind of there.
What did you think? And if you liked Yelena's character, Florence Pugh's character in Black Widow, you can expect her in the Hawkeye mini series on Disney Plus. As she's been teased with the character introduced kind of in a reverse fashion, because this was supposed to come out before Falcon and Winter Soldier, but Julia Louis-Dreyfus's character, the Contessa, who's
Madam Hydra.
Madam Hydra, essentially, and she's kind of forming this Dark Avengers, wink wink. Oh shit, I can't wink. Oh, I can't. I can. It's only
like a
blink.
Kit Harington bit. Did you ever see that? I forget what talk show he was on.
I think it was Jimmy Fallon.
Where he can't blink, or he can't wink, and he every time he winks, he's just like,
"Oh, that's blinking." It's a good bit. It's a good bit that's been done like a million times. Anyway, I sincerely could not do it for a second.
I mean, I'm. The thing with the Marvel teasers now is it's just kind of like, if they're not like super hype, then I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that's interesting, and this is where that one falls.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, all right, yeah.
I can get that.
I'm gonna watch that show, so
we can talk about one that's a little bit more interesting here in just a second.
But before I want to get to that, because I think this next bit is going to be quicker.
Okay.
The next thing I watched that just came out this Friday, Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Yeah, we both watched that.
We did.
Are you a fan of the original? I was just gonna say.
Oh yeah, I unabashedly love the original, even though it's a terrible movie.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who are coming into Space Jam: A New Legacy, not Space Jam 2, Space Jam: A New Legacy, is they're like, oh, well, I love the original Space Jam. I mean, have you watched it recently? Overall, it's not a very well-paced movie, well-written, well-performed. Like, there's great references, and I actually, Zach, can I be honest with you?
Yeah,
before we get into your thing, I felt the exact same way with this movie. I was texting a friend of ours and giving my little mini review to her before we recorded this podcast, and I essentially said, yep, it's pretty much an ad for HBO Max and for Warner Brothers properties. Like, hey, if you're interested in, Stephen King's It, or you're a big fan of A Clockwork Orange or The Iron Giant or something, they're going to make references to that.
Different.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, so like, it's one big ad for me. I felt like there were just a few references that were great. I can't believe they pulled Casablanca out of the vault for this fucking movie. Good for them.
Yeah.
But I just felt like a lot of the jokes fell short. A lot of the performances fell short. I'm not knocking LeBron. I'm not.
Here's the thing. Right? It's a Space Jam movie, and a Space Jam movie that is like 20 years too fucking late.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
So expecting like high art, the fact that anyone would walk into this thinking that this was going to be a well-made movie by any stretch of the imagination was fooling themselves. And I'd love to take a hit of whatever they got. But that's. I mean, what do you expect? What do you expect?
I didn't have high expectations for this movie. I really didn't. Yeah. But
I mean, I didn't either. I did not either. But so, to transition into my feelings on the movie, I think it is exactly what you should have expected to get from it. I do think it went really heavy on the outside references, which were not present in the original Space Jam so much. Where you have like the fucking Night King standing behind Don Cheadle for like the last hour of the fucking movie.
Who was really, the performer dressed up as the Night King was really into his role. Like, he was very expressive. I could not get my eyes off of the characters in the background. That's the whole thing.
Like the one I kept looking at was they have fucking Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze from Batman Forever, who looks exactly like the Night King.
Yeah.
But he just has like a fucking the fucking bathrobe or whatever on.
Yeah.
But literally every scene he's in the background, he's just doing the same like.
Yeah. Oh, maybe we're talking about the same person. I think I confused the Night King with Mr. Freeze. They're both bald white guys, you know. Yeah. You've seen one, you've seen them all.
But you know, like in terms of that is a little different. But on the other hand, I do like the bits of right at the beginning when LeBron has to get all the tunes together, and they've all just been kind of like separated into different Warner properties. I mean, fucking Wile E. Coyote fucking holding up the "Witness Me" sign. Yeah. That's fucking gold, man.
It is. I honestly, like I said, with the Casablanca reference and the Mad Max reference, they dug into properties that will
Rick and Morty showing up.
They literally reached into every single category of demographic that they could. They're like, let's get the teens, let's get the grandparents, let's get the parents, let's get everybody, because everyone's gonna get at least one reference. They referenced the Matrix, and I get it.
I was gonna. Go ahead.
The fucking granny scene with the Matrix. Yes. I'm like, this was one person's wet dream. Like, they've been waiting for this scene to show up in a movie or a TV show for literally decades.
And they follow it up too. Like in the last 30 minutes of the movie, they roll back to that Matrix thing with her.
It's a fucking callback. Because she was in the Matrix world for so long. Which is just the real world, by the way.
Yeah. No, the one I was going to bring up is there's a fucking Training Day reference in this.
Yeah.
They dug in deep. If that's not on the tip of the public consciousness's tongue these days, I don't know what is. But yeah, like those kinds of reference I really dug. Those are fun. That kind of veered more into like the weird, actually utilizing some of this for effect, as opposed to just like throwing fucking Annabelle in the background. Like, look, see, like they're just there, so it's not like it digs into the movie or anything. But it is a 2-hour, like over 2-hour long movie.
Yeah.
Well, I think like a little under. I think it's like an hour 55.
It feels longer.
It does feel longer. It's like the second half, maybe like a little bit of the end of the first half to the middle of the second half feel like a slog sometimes.
Yeah.
It's just because it's not really that funny. In those parts, they're like trying to steer into this whole like father-son dynamic, which is the point of the movie, but like, and then Don Cheadle, for his credit, is like hamming it up the whole fucking movie.
He's having fun. Like
he is having fun and getting paid.
Yeah.
But there are certain scenes that I think just kind of go on for a little too long, where if we just kind of compacted that and then got back to like the fun, silly stuff, the stupid shit, then I think this probably could have been more in line with what the first movie was overall.
I honestly think they could have probably cut like at least 20 minutes of this movie with just the slower moments, exactly the part of the movie that you're talking about. I know exactly what you mean, and you definitely feel it drag, because by the time you get to the basketball game and everybody's getting transported and the stakes get raised because everybody's going to get trapped there forever or whatever, it definitely feels like, I don't feel like the stakes are raised though. I don't feel like anything has changed at all. And
and what's kind of weird about this movie too is, so in the first one, the whole kind of general conceit of it was we were taking this guy, general conceit, who's presented as past his prime, right? Like he's in the MLB right now, and he's sucking it up. And
but
we're gonna bring him over. Okay, what?
But he's not though. Like the with Space Jam 1, you had literally Michael Jordan digging into the fact that he switched over and pivoted to baseball,
yes,
and like
that's
how
his
career. Oh, I thought you were talking about Space Jam: A New Legacy.
No. I'm comparing the two.
Oh, okay.
So in the first one, you have MJ, who is shown like his character's conceit is that yes, he has changed careers and he's picked baseball, and he sucks at it. So he's still kind of struggling to do something different, and then he gets pulled into this interdimensional basketball game as sort of like find your rhythm again, like find your like what you're good at sort of thing. In Space Jam: A New Legacy, the conceit is LeBron's a really bad dad, and everybody but him knows it.
Yeah.
So he has to learn the one lesson that everybody else knows in the span of 2 hours. It's like
he's trying to teach everybody like the fundamentals of basketball, or like how you win every championship games. And I'm like, you need to learn the fundamentals about being a dad, and that's the fucking like bumper sticker you slap on the back of your car.
Yeah.
And it's so simple a lesson that you think that someone like LeBron would be able to figure that out, even if his character is treated.
Well, and it's like that weird like disconnect from reality, right? Because I'm sure like if you saw LeBron in real life, he's probably one of the best dads ever, right?
Yeah,
like,
or
he's totally gonna let his kid
supremely
do
humble and all that
he wants to do. But in the movie, you have to make that kind of disconnect to, I guess, have some sort of plot if that's your underlying theme. But because it like the movie literally starts with people with LeBron's wife specifically, basically laying out like you're a shitty dad, bro. Yeah. Like you gotta have a conversation with your kid.
I also feel like Sonequa Martin Green was severely underutilized.
Oh yeah, for
sure. Just because we both know of her acting abilities, and I feel like she could have been implemented more as the mom, but she's quite literally put on the sidelines with all of the other characters that are just like, go, learn that lesson, LeBron. Come on, it's not all about you.
And video games would have destroyed LeBron's career, apparently.
Yeah, that's the downfall, really.
Yes.
This movie also brought to you by E3.
Yes, yeah.
It's
yeah. There's that like weird thing where like we are going to try to convey that we know something about video games, so we're gonna just grab things from the most basic surface level, and they don't make a goddamn bit of sense.
Nope.
Like they go from at one point saying, can you remember the name of LeBron's kid? I can't remember.
I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah. LeBron's kid wants to design video games for a living. And so like he's made a game, but it's weirdly kind of stated half the time as he made a character. Like he made the game, but then there are certain it's very strange. Like the discussion of game making will devolve into like buzzwords half the time, but yeah, it's whatever. The last thing I'll say about it is there's a weird kind of folding in and on itself in this movie.
How do you mean?
Because it exists in a reality where Space Jam 1 did happen. They've made several references to the fact that at one point Michael Jordan and the Looney Tunes were on a basketball team together, and they did play. They did defeat the Monstars, who do show up briefly. Yeah. It's the same cell panels, by the way. They just recycled those.
They really did. The son's name is Dom. Not that it matters. We've moved on, but
Dom. But it's also the universe also establishes Space Jam as an actual movie.
Yeah.
So somewhere within this reality, they have either adapted the events of Michael Jordan's life in which he played with the Looney Tunes, or
are we back on our totally insane theory show?
yes, it's
our
time
second
for that
segment.
again. Or the Warner Brothers is actively funding some sort of interdimensional travel over the course of 20 years.
I actually wanted to throw this by you. This is another part of our totally impossible theory show. That there is a possibility that they are leaning into a cinematic universe with the Space Jam movies and the other Looney Tune live action movies.
Yeah.
Like with them hinting kind of at a reboot of the Back in Action movie, or a version of that where the Looney Tunes are in the real world kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't know how I feel about that. As long as you bring Brendan Fraser back, because he's coming back.
Yes,
so.
yes.
Don't dismiss Brendan Fraser like that. How dare you?
Anyway,
he deserves the world.
So that's just a weird little tidbit. There's some weird incongruous things in there, but it's whatever. Ultimately, what I did enjoy, I did quite like, but it's so bloated, like kind of in the middle there, that it just kind of drags the whole thing down, and it's not fun there. It doesn't really ramp back up until like the last 20 minutes. So yeah. I still what
best joke of the movie is when I think it's Daffy Duck or some character's like, I got Michael Jordan, he's gonna help us out.
Yes,
and then
that is
there's
a
slow walk in. I'm like, I know exactly what they're doing, and this is great. And it's Michael B. Jordan, not Michael A. Jordan. And the way that he just shows up for, like, I guess a quick paycheck.
Yeah, it's like 2 lines and then just walks back out. Yeah, very funny.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, there's good bits like that. It's just kind of all the other stuff that drags it down a little bit. But that's exactly what I expected. I'm not surprised. I enjoyed it for what it was. And then the last thing I watched, which I know you watched as well.
Yes. I feel like we should have done this before Space Jam, but go ahead.
Yeah. Well, I thought we were going to breeze through Space Jam pretty quick, but
Whoops.
we evidently did not. I watched the finale and the preceding episodes to that finale of Loki Season 1.
So you're finally caught up.
All caught up, yes.
Zach, what did you think of Loki, I almost said animated series, Loki, the Disney Plus series? Question mark. Best last episode so far of the Marvel movie or Marvel TV shows. Agreed.
For sure. Hands
Agreed.
down.
It tied everything together. The arc of the entire season was leading up into that point, and whether or not you're a comic book fan, you should be excited for where it's going into the future, whether you're only going to watch Loki or you're going to continue with the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
So I will caveat that because I watched it with Casey, and she has no kind of context for what happened in that last episode and like why this person that they're talking to is so important. So I kind of had to explain that to her, and because she's so far removed from comics in general and just like that landscape, it's like, oh, all right, well, that's for her. It was kind of like a ho hum sort of finale. It was good, like everybody performed well, but it was just like, I'm kind of missing some oomph here. So in that respect, I think in terms of being able to contextualize what is actually happening, we got a lot more out of that than I would say your average non-familiar viewer would get.
It's so odd to see somebody who would be invested in part of the MCU, like watching certain things because certain actors are in that. In any other case would be totally fine, but when you're watching, say, the first couple episodes of WandaVision and then the last 2 episodes of Falcon and Winter Soldier and then like the whole series of Loki, and it's like you're missing smaller pieces. And granted, these are like little mini like movies basically, like, or several movies in one, based on how long they are.
Well, I should clarify, she is up to date on the MCU,
right?
But what's being kind of positioned at the end of Loki here is it's not been established in the MCU. It's where we're going from now.
Right. I just meant to generalize, like, most people who have been like, oh, I really like Tom Hiddleston. I watched Avengers that one time and he was great. and so I'll watch Loki, and then they're watching it, and then they don't like, they feel left out, or they feel like they're disappointed based on how this first season ends. And it's not necessarily what they're saying or doing in the episode, but what it's alluding to for the future of the MCU, which is supposed to get you excited for the future.
So this is kind of the downfall of, you know, any sort of huge property like that. I mean, eventually we're going to get to the point where the MCU is like that in general. I think we're probably already there for some people.
Spider-Man Far From Home ending.
Yeah. So
that kind of cliffhanger.
Like, that's just, unfortunately, that's just kind of something you're going to have to deal with. And the important thing is not to necessarily, like, shutter those people out, especially if they're interested, but, like, letting them come in and be like, yo, hey, this is why this is exciting. And then, you know, they'll just watch the other thing, and then they'll be excited with you.
Indeed.
But rolling back to the episode that came before the finale, just really briefly, I loved seeing all the different versions of Loki. Yeah. I have only known Alligator Loki for 2 weeks, but I would literally die for him.
Yeah, he's the best.
And yeah, seeing classic Loki, that costume was
Richard E.
fantastic.
Grant.
Yeah.
This is his like third appearance in the MCU, technically. Good stuff.
So yeah, that was a lot of fun. And then the finale, which I loved. I think it was the exact opposite of, say, something like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which was all shooty bang bang in the finale.
Or WandaVision.
WandaVision, I think, was probably more in the middle, but yes, it was a lot of laser fights. You did have some talking scenes, but ultimately, you know, it still came down to superhero powers battling it out. But this finale is literally just sit down and talk for like an hour, and it's fucking fantastic. I don't know if you want to go into spoilers.
Let's do it.
On that?
Okay. Let's do it. Jonathan Majors.
I don't know if we did a news segment about this or if I covered it in the Insiders video I did way back. But we've known for a while now that Jonathan Majors is playing Kang the Conqueror, also known as Nathaniel Richards from Fantastic Four in Ant-Man 3 Quantumania.
Yeah.
And he shows up here as He Who Remains is what Miss Minutes calls him.
Yes. And what he refers to him as himself. Well, he kind of refers to himself as that, but he also refers to himself as, you know, many names.
Yes, yeah. He says he's been called, you know, Conqueror. That the Conqueror line was like a haha sort of thing.
Yeah, for everyone who didn't already get where we were going with this and wasn't paying attention to everything been announced so far.
Yeah, which, to be fair, sometimes it's hard to keep up, especially in Marvel. It's like you go 2 days and there's another
new cast announcement.
Yeah. Dude, I am so fucking stoked to see more of Jonathan Majors on screen in the MCU. He kills it. He's so fucking good here.
He literally, like, I was actually catching back up on Lovecraft Country the week before when episode 5 came out, not realizing that he was going to show up in the finale of this. Yeah. And after watching the finale of this, I instantly hopped back onto Lovecraft Country. I'm only a couple episodes away from finishing that. That's a topic for another time. Still sad we won't get to season 2 now. I haven't even finished the first season. I'm like, I want more of that. Anyway, the potential of him showing up unannounced in a separate Disney Plus show that he wasn't confirmed for opens up the doors for literally every other show. Like, when we were getting annoyed, or I was getting annoyed with the help me out with the demon character's name that was supposed to show up in WandaVision.
Oh, Mephisto. And
everybody was like, well, Mephisto is this character and this character. Yeah. And we were just constantly having to deal with all of these rumors about a character showing up that wasn't announced, and then we got a totally different character.
Yeah.
Well, now this is just basically saying, hey, you can keep doing that with every other show because that's totally possible. They can be a variant of another version of a character you've already met in a fucking movie.
Well, I think what seems to be happening to me here is that it's setting up him as the main villain of this saga, and like Thanos was in the Infinity Saga, and fuck, I am so on board for that.
But to do it on on a Disney Plus show rather than a movie. That's what's exciting about this, and it shows the commitment that they are into tying these TV shows with the movies.
Yeah, absolutely. And like this version of him has been around for like eons at this, maybe not eons, but thousands of years at this point.
The rumor is that he's Immortus, that version,
and he's just tired, so he's not fighting anyone. He's just there, and he's been staving off this kind of what do you call it, multiversal war.
Yeah.
The whole time, which is what the TVA is supposed to do, because just if they don't keep it on the right path, then all the other versions of him just start trying to kill shit. And so like this version, which is our introduction to him, is so like withdrawn and mellow.
Mm-hmm.
But clearly unhinged, like he's clearly taken a beating a little bit.
Yeah.
At least emotionally and mentally. And to be able to see that before you get to the sort actual, of like all-powerful sort of version of him is really cool. And I'm super digging it.
I think a lot of people were disappointed that or the people who were anticipating his character when he shows up, and I'm like, oh shit, they're actually doing this. When I was watching the episode in my car in my job's parking lot, fucking 3:00 in the morning, I was like, oh shit, they're actually doing it. And then I realized, wait, but he doesn't look like the comic book version of Kang the Conqueror. What are they doing? Because they're doing something. And then as it exposits more and more during the course of the episode, I was like, oh, I see what they're doing. And I knew exactly what was going to go on with the rest of the episode when it comes to Loki and Sylvie's reaction to all of this news. But it's what happens after Loki gets pushed back into the TVA where things just start to go nuts.
Yeah, off the rails, for sure.
And the theories are just exploding everywhere, all over the internet.
Yeah. I don't even know what to think about that. So it's the post-credit scene was really interesting in this, and it kind of connects to that last scene. And that it's not a typical post-credit scene. It's more in line with, say, something like what the Mandalorian Season 2 post-credit scene was.
Yeah.
But even more reserved than that, because up until... from everything I've read, it seems like it was a last-minute call on whether or not this was going to happen. So
like this was okayed like after the first or second episode had already been released?
Yeah, or something like that, because I mean they clearly had to have had enough time to do like the B-roll for it, because that's all it is. It's just paperwork being pushed.
Yeah,
and a stamp comes down. It's Loki will return for season 2.
Yeah, which seems like lazy. Which I know you're kind of hinting at, but it seems like lazy when we're expecting a scene or an interaction between characters or a tease towards another villain or another hero showing up. But honestly, the announcement of another season of Loki, this being the only Disney Plus Marvel show
that has been
officially confirms, to have a second season, entices you to like start to theorize even more, not necessarily for the greater MCU at large, but like just for where this story is going and where Loki's going to go from here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in terms of maybe being a little disappointed about that post-credit scene not leading into anything, my feeling on it is that while sure, like I would have liked to see a little bit more, I'm totally fine with that, because that entire episode, not only did it wrap the main through line of Loki and Sylvie up, but it also, like, that whole last scene was basically a post-credits scene. Yeah. It's just an hour-long post-credit scene. It's like, here's what's going to come up next.
Yeah, it was one of the main reasons why I honestly think they were waiting for, and they'll say it afterwards, but there's been hints, a little behind the scenes, not Loki related, but reasons as to why the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer has been delayed over and over and over again. And I think it's because they were waiting for the releases of all of these Phase 4 properties. That includes WandaVision, which ties into Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, which will not coincidentally, what is the word? Simultaneously also tie into the Spider-Man No Way Home in a way, because they will affect each other. Everything in Phase 4 is way more connected than any of the phases before.
Previously.
Same thing. And I think that's why people are so excited for it, because there's literally limitless possibilities, not only with the villains and where the storylines can go from here, but where the characters can go from here. And we're going to see that with the What If series that's going to be dropping on Disney Plus later this year. And honestly, like, they could even hint at Phase 4 stuff happening. They actually had to cut stories in What If because they're going to tie them into Phase 4. Like, the whole Thor Love and Thunder, which isn't this year, that's next year. But it's still technically Phase 4.
Yeah, I think up next is Eternals.
Yes. Wait. Eternals in September?
Eternals in September, and I think Hawkeye is in November.
That can't be the next Disney Plus. I feel like I'll look
Eternals
this up.
isn't Disney Plus show; it's a movie.
No, it's a movie, but like just Marvel in general.
Well, I think they're splitting it up, so that I think the next Disney Plus show on the docket is Ahsoka, or it's a Star Wars one, I think.
Star Wars, yeah, where we're gonna start alternating. Yeah, Black Widow, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then Loki. That's not an up-to-date one. Eternals is in November, and then we get Spider-Man in December, and then Doctor Strange in March.
Dang, so Hawkeye's not till next year?
I don't think so. I'm getting a lot of different pictures. Google is an
well,
absolute
to be
bitch.
fair, they've each thing has had like 3 different releases.
No, Shang-Chi is next. Sorry.
Oh, Shang-Chi. Yeah, fuck. Yeah.
Shang-Chi is in September, and then it's nothing in October, and then Eternals in November, and then Spider-Man in December. But the reason I think a lot of people aren't necessarily quote unquote excited for Shang-Chi is because it's another origin story, which granted, I'm still excited for the character because we're actually getting a villain from the past of the MCU returning, and we're actually getting
in a proper way.
And I'm excited to see where that story goes. But I think a lot of people aren't necessarily as excited because it doesn't tie into all of the multiverse stuff that the Disney Plus shows and the other movies are alluding to. Yeah. But that's the next one.
So that's it for me. Nick, you have 10 minutes.
Oh, shit. Okay. Well, all right.
No, you're good. We can go over a little bit.
We'll go over a little bit because I feel like I gotta. Damn it. Well, so I'll quickly go over that. I finished the Fear Street trilogy of movies that were being released every other week. I briefly went over 1 and 2 last week. I watched part 3, and it is a trilogy of movies, but they all tie in together. And it's all one single story. It's just like a frame story, much like the Gothic stories of old. And I think that the final part actually ties in everything together really well. I think whereas the first one was kind of a teen slasher movie, the second one was kind of more of a classic slasher movie, like a Friday the 13th. This one was more of a Gothic, witchcraft story, which then bleeds into the final part of the framework, the outside story, leading into how they solve the mystery of how to lift this curse on this town. And I think the acting is really well done. I think if you're a horror fan, if you haven't already watched these, because they've been plastered fucking everywhere on Netflix, they're selling the hell out of this. I also wanted to briefly mention that I made a mistake in thinking that they were always going to be a Netflix movie. They had actually originally planned for all 3 movies to be one movie and to be released in theaters last year, but they then sold the rights to Netflix during the COVID-19 pandemic, split them into 3, which honestly is for the best.
Yeah, you think it works better than
Yeah, because there's a lot of backstory for certain characters, and it gives you more time to do some great gore effects, and it's great. You know, you got some great cameos in the show. But I highly recommend it if you're a slasher horror movie fan. Didn't get to check out another horror movie that I actually recommended to you, Zach, but is also on Netflix, called A Classic Horror Story. I've been hearing mixed things, but from the trailer that I saw, it looks really interesting, so I want to check that out. I will get back to you next week. But there's been so much horror content, you know, you got to take a break. You got to take a break. But
Christmas in July, more like Halloween in July.
Hello, Halloween, boo. Finally,
You can take a breath. We can go over.
Finally, I went to go see Pig, starring Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff, in theaters. And
yes, this has been described, from what I've seen and from what I've observed from the trailer itself, or from the synopsis actually itself, it outwardly seems like a sort of John Wick-esque take for Nicolas Cage, but with a pig. But from what I'm getting from your reactions, it is not that.
It is not. It is a very personal and introspective tale on the quality of a man, in a way. I'm not, that makes it seem deep. It's not that deep. It's not surface level shallow either. But what I will say is that Nicolas Cage gives one of his best performances that I've seen in years in this movie. Wow. I have a problem with the Wolf brothers in certain movies, not necessarily because I can't distinguish between them sometimes.
Wolf brothers, meaning
Naked Brothers band? No, one of them was in Hereditary. That's the one who's in Pig. The other one was in the Death Note movie.
Ah, okay.
So they kind of alternate between different roles, and you can look up their filmographies later on IMDb. But yeah, they were in the Naked Brothers band, which is on Disney Channel. I just feel like that's a fact that needs to be known.
Hey, subscribe to Paramount Plus. Hashtag not subscribed.
Fucking
fuck.
I technically am, because I wanted to watch iCarly. That's a story for another time. I'm an adult man, and I'm nearly 30.
I'll watch some SpongeBob. I don't care. Get some Rugrats.
Hell yeah. Wait, the new Rugrats? Did you watch the new Rugrats?
I haven't watched them.
It doesn't look good. But actually, neither does the original to me. The animation for like Rugrats and Wild Thornberrys always kind of put me off in a way.
Yeah.
Like it seemed gross. I don't know. Like all
I think
real
that's
monsters.
the point. I think that's the point. There's actually a not to go off on a tangent here.
We're already off on it.
There's a documentary, I think it's on Hulu, about the creation of Nickelodeon. And the channel that I have saved for watching. So maybe I'll get back to you next week on that.
All right,
but
perfect.
yeah, in the bump they kind of talk about like how a lot of that was they didn't really have a whole lot of oversight. There wasn't a committee kind of looking over their shoulder the whole time. So they would do this animation style or make these jokes that were like really edgy and
I remember that as a kid. I was like, I don't get this.
I mean, that's where You Can't Do That on TV comes from, right? Like,
yeah.
The whole early years of Nick were just kind of a Wild Wild West sort of thing. Oh yeah. But yeah, maybe I'll get back to you with that next week.
Well, going back to Pig, starring Nicolas Cage and Alex Wolff. That's not the name of the movie. It's just called Pig, but I feel like that's too short of a title. It's very much an artistic indie film, in that it takes liberties with its runtime, stretching it out, giving you long panoramas of the environment and of Nicolas Cage walking from one side of the screen to the other, or doing a seemingly innocuous chore, taking care of one thing or talking to one person. And it's basically a story about a man, a former chef. That's kind of a spoiler. It's not really. Former chef who decides to seclude himself in the woods with a truffle pig and sell truffles to get by. He kind of just wants to be away from society because he was both shunned and thrown out by society and from the worlds that he came to be known for or famous for. But then once his pig gets stolen, he tries to chase it down because that pig has a ultimately deeper meaning that I don't want to spoil. But I feel like it's a very simple movie that you can digest and ultimately come out the other end once the credits roll feeling like you can probably attribute something that somebody or something is your truffle pig. And if that was taken away from you, you will see that.
Sorry, I know that's a sincere statement. It's just funny.
I get it. Yeah, it's not said every day. So, I mean, like, if somebody took away, video games or movie or any of my personal time away from me, that's my truffle pig, and I want my truffle pig back. Or otherwise, I'm less of a person. and it's something I identify with. There are deeper meanings that I, obviously, being a unibrowed, intellectual, not intelligent person, can really convey. But I honestly highly recommend this artistic film from director... Oh, fuck, Nick, I can't believe you fucked this up. Why didn't you look this up beforehand, you son of a bitch? Why the fuck? Michael Sarnowski, whose filmography includes Feast of Love, Paranoid Park, Violence of Action, Gone, starring Amanda, I Have Big Eyes Seyfried, Untraceable. He's done a lot of different things, but Pig is a very... at first I thought it was going to be a John Wick type of film. The trailer kind of conveyed it that way.
It seems like, but yeah.
It is not. It is a very slow burn, but it is a very heartwarming personal story, and Nicolas Cage will leave you enthralled throughout. I highly recommend it. I honestly think Nicolas Cage, taking a step back away from like blockbuster movies and high budget films and series, is the best for him, because he's had this this weird
Renaissance.
It's a renaissance, and he's taking a step back and doing all of these indie movies because they're interesting. Right. Willy's Wonderland notwithstanding, he's been doing a lot of great films like Color Out of Space, Mandy, which I highly recommend, and this film. So yeah. I
mean, we were chit-chatting a little bit about it before, because you were kind of bouncing off some of your baseline thoughts on me when you came out of the movie, and we were talking about how, you know, it's nice that he's been able to get out from underneath that rock, because a lot of the times he was taking those deals for the blockbuster movies, or like just kind of garbage. It was just because he had all the debt problems that he had at the time, and now he doesn't have those anymore. So he's able to take things that he's actually passionate about and wants to put himself into. And, you know, I look forward to seeing him in the Nicolas Cage movie.
Yeah.
Coming out within... Is that next year or this year?
So he was originally going to be playing the Tiger King guy.
No, I meant the movie, I know, about Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, basically the JCVD version of his, like, a kind of weird meta parody of his own life kind of thing. Yeah. I don't think that was this year. I think it got delayed.
Did it?
But originally I was going to say he was tied into the Tiger King movie, but then they dropped that because they're like, nobody wants to go see this because nobody talks about Tiger King anymore.
Nobody gives a shit anymore.
Yeah, we've moved on.
That was a fun month.
I could try to look up the name of the movie. I remember Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, yes. Which is... Hold on. I had to put my phone down. Chef's Kiss. A great title. It reminds me of, like, Incredibly Dangerous and Surprisingly Close, or whatever it's fucking
incredibly
called.
Incredibly Loud and Dangerously Close, or something.
No, it was the one about Ted Bundy. Anyway, sets April 2022 release in theaters, where he plays a fictionalized version of himself in a satirical feature, and I think only he can really do that.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
So, well, no, I mean, like, you know,
yeah,
you get what I mean, like his persona, you know. I would not be surprised if Jeff Goldblum did the exact same thing and people had the exact same reaction, because that's just who he is as a person and as a character. It's just who he plays. Again, we don't recommend a lot of artsy films because I think both you and I don't go out of our way normally to go see kind of artsy films, but if you get the chance, I highly recommend not seeing what is it? Fucking Escape Room 2, Tournament of Champions, or fucking whatever it's fucking called. Or Space Jam, if you have HBO Max. Just go watch it at home. Go check out Pig.
Yeah, I no. Just straight up, I would not pay to watch Space Jam: A New Legacy. Unless you got like 5 kids you're taking. But even then, it's cheaper to just watch it at home because they don't give a shit. Just watch it at home.
Yeah. I don't have anything else, you know, other than the stuff that we talked about. I'm really excited for the future of the MCU. I'm really excited for the future of Nicolas Cage. And I'm really excited for the future of you, Zach.
Oh, I'm excited about the future of me, too.
Yeah. Well, Zach, if people wanted to talk about your future and how much they're worried about you and what you do in your daily life, just the decisions that you make, come on, Zach, get us together. How would they email us?
If you want to tell me I need to drink more water, you can tell me at our Patreon, patreon.com/lightscameranonsense, or you can email us at questions@lightscameranonsense.com.
Zach, if people want... Oh, go ahead.
No, you go for it.
I was just going to say, Zach, if people wanted to represent their favorite new movie podcast with all this great new merch, like this or this... Fuck, why do I keep doing that to myself? As an editor, why do I keep doing that to myself? They can also go to store.lightscameranonsense.com, and they can buy it there, and help support their favorite new movie podcast. What was the thing you were going to say?
I was going to say real quick, can you believe that they did not give us our Chekhov's jet ski in Loki?
That was a surprise, cop. I am very sad. I think the jet ski is the friendship that they built along the way.
Yes. The real jet ski was the friendship we built along the way.
And I'm very sad about that, to be honest. But I think with the possibility of a season 2, you never know. You never know.
That's true. It's going to be a series-long jet ski.
Oh, I just realized that the friendship they built along the way is now just gone because he doesn't recognize Loki anymore.
Yes. Yeah.
Ah, fuck.
And
he's going to have to describe his jet ski love all over again.
The friend that he had in the TVA before is also gone because
he's in a different... He's in a different reality now. Fuck. Well, now I'm just depressed. This has been Lights, Camera, Nonsense, keeping you updated despite our best efforts. Make sure to tune in every week for all the latest news, reviews, and what else, Zach?
I do news.
Perfectly said. Thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next week.
Bye.